Thanks, Tanya. Hi, everybody. How are you all? So I'm going to talk about this year. Sorry, I'm going to try not to mention the C word, but it is about this year. But before I do, I want us to just step back in time. So what is it that you have been really proud about in the last 12 months? Or maybe what you were proud about last year or the year before that? So I was asked that question 10 years ago, and in that moment I froze. So I was at a work Christmas dinner where we could all be socially close, 12 of us seated around a really large table in the restaurant in Islington, all looking really ridiculous in our paper Christmas hats. And my boss had this moment around the table. She said, I want to ask you a question. She said, I want you to share one moment that stands out in the last 12 months as your highlight. And so around the table, everyone had their turn. And as I got closer to me, my heart started getting faster, beating faster. Got closer to me and my turn, and my face was starting to get hotter and starting to get nervous, maybe a little bit about how I feel right now, actually. And the reason was, I was like, I don't have anything to share. Couldn't think of one moment, like on the top of my head, that I would want to share. And then it was my turn. And so in that moment, around that Christmas table in front of all my colleagues, I did the one thing that I thought I could do. I kind of made it up. And I thought that was better than saying nothing at all. I didn't lie, but it wasn't the moment. And so I left that Christmas dinner having a decision made that I would never let a year go by, having felt that again, like I was going to create those moments. And so I see as that question was like the question. And because the impact of that question is that I'd gone from being like the least non-adventure person you knew, pretty shy, little confidence. I'd call myself a passenger in my own life, to becoming a person who said yes, meeting Dave, the Yes Tribe, yes to paddleboarding to France, yes to climbing to the highest point in every European country, and yes to running the width of the UK last year. But what has that got to do with tonight and what I want to share? Well, back then, it was then I found out how powerful one question could be if we took that one question and we wanted to answer it. So we find ourselves in 2020. My plans, like most of yours, I'm sure, completely kind of been thrown out. And to be honest, my first 6 months of the year were a bit of a corona coaster, which I'm sure a lot of people may have experienced as well. And it got to June. And in June, I was thinking, oh gosh, what is it that 2020 is going to be like? What am I going to remember about this year? And it wasn't for the coronavirus stuff. That's not what I wanted to shape my 2020 to be this year. So I found a new question. I asked myself, so I can't do all of this amazing stuff and, restrictions, COVID, social distancing, Boris, but what is it that I can do? So it left me wondering. I live in Brighton. I thought I finished work on a Thursday night. I have 3 days off. I don't go back to work until Monday. How far can I get from my house to Cornwall? Like, how far could I travel every weekend if I were to go away for 3 days and then come back? And I figured out, so I got out my map and I figured out that with a bit of a planning, it ended up being that I could get myself from Brighton to Exeter in over 3 long weekends. I thought that was quite far, but quite cool. That was only 3 weekends. And I also discovered that that's where the Jurassic Coast is. I never knew that. I'd heard about it all this time that I've lived in the UK, but never heard about where it was. And so that's where the idea of my 90-day challenge came from. So if I were to look at just the next 90 days, because as we know, life beyond a lot of time is a little bit too hard to predict right now. And so I created one aim in those 90 days. To get myself outside and others so we could go for an adventure, have some awesome experiences, some meaningful conversations, and of course, what's required on all adventures is a bit of grit. And what happened in those 90 days led to so many unexpected, amazing moments that you just can't plan for. So when we were allowed to, when Boris pressed the go button, the 4th of July was the first day that we could sleep somewhere else that wasn't our house, I was out. And it led to adventures, things like paddleboarding, teaching a friend actually how to go on a paddleboard adventure down the River Thames, taking a friend out wild camping because she'd never done it before. I created 3 journeys between Brighton and Exeter and created teams of people. And we cycled from Poole to Brighton, and then we walked along the Jurassic Coast. And then one of the bigger epic journeys that we did over that period of the summer was a 10-day journey. Paddleboarding is one of my biggest passions. And so me and my good mate Mel, we went on a ridiculously tough journey, 163k miles, and about 91 locks along the Liverpool and Leeds Canal, going from one side of England to the other. And so all of that happened just because I took one little question, made a plan, stuck it in my diary, and kind of the rest was history. And it was in those little adventures that I was reminded how epic it is to journey in the UK. Like, we've heard some stories tonight, how great it is, but you don't have to do it for a long period of time. You can just do it in a couple of days. And also, I think, mentioning the C word, COVID has really made me feel and remind myself how grateful I am to meet strangers. We were locked up inside for so long, not getting to have a conversation and meet new people. But when you're out on a few days on a journey, it's getting to meet people and having them touch your life, but you touch theirs as well. And so for me, it is really about the people on the journey. So for example, when I was paddleboarding along the canal through across the middle of England, we were meeting people. I don't know if you've paddleboarded before, but you can literally walk and paddle at the same time. And so loads of people walking along the towpath. We had a guy slow down on his bike and he cycled with us for 3 miles, sharing literally his life story, which was awesome. There was another guy that we met who would have been in his 80s. His name was Harry. And he had this big overcoat on, like a really great proper English accent. And he was scattering seeds along the towpath. And we were asking him, what is he doing? And he shared this amazing story about for how the last 20 years, he has been rewilding and planting wildflowers along the canal path. He even said one sneaky year he wanted to do something a bit naughty, and he brought a bucket of marijuana seeds, but he said none of them grew. And during that trip, one of the kind of more unexpected things that happened, because we are in such a space of, financial overwhelm with what's happening. On about day 3 of the journey, we met a guy who was walking along with his son, and it was a great conversation, only for about 5 minutes, but then he reached into his pocket and he outpulled £5. And the reason why he did that is we were raising money for Mind. But I wasn't expecting people, strangers, to hand us cash as we were paddling down the middle of the canal. And what happened over the rest of the days was that people were just opening their wallets and passing us cash for us to be able to then donate along to Mind, which I thought was pretty awesome. And then a couple of stories on the Jurassic Coast, slightly different experiences. So the team 1, I call them, we were out, we were walking, we weren't walking for charity, we were just walking for a bit of good times and a bit of grits. It was quite tough. But we kept being given free stuff. So one evening we were walking along the beach after a really long day. We saw some guys, they were fishing, and they gave us free beer. Another time, Spike won some free wine in a tombola, squeezing this bottle into his backpack that he had literally packed was like 30 litres for the whole of the 4 days. We got almost free pasties. Then there was the free bedrooms, of course, like with the most epic sunsets and sunrises. And of course, the free beach bonfires as well that we were building as we went along the way. And then in team 2, we went back for the last 4 days of the trip. And that's where we really discovered what Zoom feet are. I don't know if you've heard of Zoom feet. It's kind of a term that we decided to create on the journey. But basically what it is if you've been working for 6 months in your house without wearing shoes, you then go and put the boots on that you've been wearing for all those trips before COVID, but your feet forgot. And so what happened was everyone was just getting attacked with blisters. And poor Drew, he got attacked big time. His feet were covered. And I'd recently learned a new blister trick. So I'm going to let you know what it is so you can use it on your journeys. So you take a needle and a thread, and you pass the needle through the blister and the thread through the blister, and you just leave the thread hanging from both sides of the blister. What happens is then everything that's inside the blister pours out. Unfortunately, I didn't realize how much would pour out onto my hand. So Drew's fluid was like, that was quite a funny moment on the trip, but a great way to deal with blisters. So top tip. So as I was moving through these 90 days, I was learning more and more and opening up and enjoying life in such a different way than the first 6 months of the year, learning and growing. And and through conversations, having new conversations with people. And then the surprise for me, a bigger surprise, came at the end. So one thing that I said I would never do and I couldn't do was that I couldn't ever create my own business. And out of those 90 days, I discovered that that's untrue. After having a chat with a colleague in America, we both discovered that we loved and have a joy for hiking and in the outdoors. And she told me about this product and I was like, I've never heard of it. And then all of a sudden I got off the call from her and went straight, not onto work, but to buy it. And I was really upset because I couldn't bring it into the UK. They didn't ship to the UK. So after a few conversations, me thinking I need to get this here for me and my friends, I decided actually I need to get it from here for me and all of the women in the UK who love adventuring. So that's now my new next 90-day challenge, to take on creating a business and bringing something frigging awesome to us ladies over here in the UK. So looking back on this, I have, thinking about my 2020 now, taking just those 90 days, it has completely reshaped how I consider my 2020. So my question to you is, what are you going to create in the next 90 days? What fun and adventures and moments are you going to take on, getting outside your comfort zone where possible, even when it's a bit wintry and cold? So that would take us to the 28th of February, if you wanted to put that date in your diary. And wouldn't it be cool if in March you were then back here on Zoom with us in YesStories, sharing what you've got up to in the last 90 days. So before I leave you, I have a couple of offers on what you could do in those 90 days. I love challenges, as you can tell. I have a 30-day challenge where I love getting people together on WhatsApp. I'm looking to create a Wim Hof challenge on the 1st of January. So anyone who's keen to do that, message me afterwards. I'll put my name in the chat with my details. If you have love a podcast, like Tanya said, I host the Yes Tribe Pod Club. We meet once a month and we share and have great conversations about podcasts. And if you're a person who squats when you wild pee, then you might love the solution that I've discovered that's in America that I'm bringing to the UK. So check out my details on the website, and that would be all. I'd like to thank you everyone for your time and hearing my story. And yeah, I just really challenge you to come up with a question that you want to answer and see where it leads you. Thanks.